Hello and welcome to the Family Brand Podcast. My name is Chris. I'm a husband, a father, and an entrepreneur.
My name's Melissa, and I am a wife, mother, former nurse turned real estate investor.
And we believe the greatest gift you can give your child is a last name that stands for something.
Your last name is your family's brand.
If you are a parent who wants to raise your child to know who they are, love who they are, and believe in who they are, this show is for you.
We promise to bring you real and authentic conversations with parents and experts who are committed to making their family their life's most important work.
This show will help you take a stand for your family and to raise your children by design, not default. Welcome to this week's episode of the Family Brand Podcast. Melissa and I are really excited for this episode because we did something different than what we've ever done before. I went on a trip with just the girls. Melissa went on a trip with just our three boys. And then we both left those trips to reunite all of us together in Florida for another trip. So it was just different and really fun.
Yeah. And so on this episode, we want to talk about, we both had some really great takeaways from our individual trips that we took. And then the trip that we took to Florida was actually a work trip for both of us. So, and that was just an incredible trip too. So what I guess I'd want to start with is maybe the backstory about how this happened. Because I've never, ever thought like, I'm going to take a trip with my boys. Like usually it's like a girl trip or a guy trip and never, mom and the boys or dad and the girls necessarily. And so the way that it kind of happened though is because I think we had seen some people that had gone to a girl dad camp. There's a girl dad camp that is at a college in Utah at BYU. And it's for dads and daughters, ages like 8 to 18, give or take. And I've been trying to get Chris and the girls enrolled there, but it's one of those that sells out really fast. And if you don't enroll the day they open registration, then you don't get it. So it's been 2 or 3 years of me trying to enroll them and missing the deadline. So I finally set my alarm and got them registered the day that registration opened. And they've been looking forward to it. I think that was in January when I signed them up. And so they've been looking forward to it, particularly the girls, all year. So I actually didn't really even know what to expect other than it was a girl dad camp. And I think that you, Chris, it maybe isn't even what you kind of expected, but I think from what I hear you saying, what the girls talking about, it was even better than you maybe thought it would be.
Yeah, it was awesome. And Melissa's going to tell you about, she was like, well, if you're going to do a girl dad camp, I'm going to do a boys mom camp. And so she created her own, which was really awesome.
It was fun.
So girl dad, I didn't know, but it's I would call it a movement. And it was inspired by Kobe Bryant. So when Kobe Bryant and his daughter passed away, there was this idea of what does it mean to be a girl dad? And so I had no idea what to expect. All I'd heard was it was a ton of fun from friends of mine who had gone with their girls, and you played lots of games and just had fun together. And it really was fun. We did activities like we played ultimate frisbee together. We played soccer together. We did volleyball together, gymnastics. We had, we learned to dance together to, Texas Hold'em by Beyonce, which was super fun. We did yoga together. We played in water. We swam. So just fun activities.
The whole event is put on by their sports department. So it's a lot of sports and activities.
Yeah. The women's basketball team participated, the women's volleyball team at BYU, the women's gymnastics, the women's cheer team. So that was also really cool for Ivy and Indy to see women who were also the coaches. So the volleyball coach, she was there, their track coach, she was there. So it's just cool for my girls to see these women who are coaches, who were leading young women. It was cool for them to see the athletes who were super involved and just so awesome and so interested in the girls and made it so fun for them. So it was a blast. It was fun. It was tiring. You went hard all day for basically 2 days. And it was profound. There was one session the first day where they took just the girls in to talk to them, and they took the dads. And they talked about this. It's called the Dream Gap. And you could go on YouTube and find the video for it. But the video was really profound. And it said, by age 5, most girls stop believing they can be presidents, CEOs, engineers, bosses, decision makers. By age 7, most girls believe that boys are smarter than them. And then it also talked about the fact that most parents are more likely to do a Google search for things like, will my son be gifted? Will my son excel? Will my son, accomplish or achieve all these amazing things? Most parents are twice as more likely to make those types of searches about their son than they are about their daughter. It was just really eye-opening. And what they said was like, girls really need to see examples of women who are bold and confident and going after their dreams. And, we as dads and uncles and brothers, or just men in young girls and women's life, can really speak possibility into them and help them believe like anything is possible for you. Like there's just as much that's possible and available to you as anyone. And so I would like to think that I do a good job of that as a dad to my girls. And it was eye-opening, and it had me have a significantly renewed commitment to speaking life and possibility into my girls as much as I would, my boys, that there's no difference, for me in my mind. And so I left there really just super grateful for my girls, and super grateful for that time that I got to spend with them and just how much fun we had, and a renewed sense of commitment to speaking life and possibility into my girls, and just, girls for that matter. So, it was the first time I think I've ever taken a trip. Like Melissa and I've done trips with just one of our children, or like she's done a girls trip, I've done a boys trip, but I also really loved this idea of doing a trip with just my girls. And so it was incredible for so many reasons.
One thing that I really love too is when you got home, you sat down and talked to their brothers about this conversation and how they, as Ivy and Indy's siblings, how they can play a role in that too. I thought that was super cool. Basically just telling them that, well, will you just tell?
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like this has been a conversation we've already been in as a
Mhm.
family, which is, hey, as boys in our family, it's not okay and it's not acceptable that you ever make derogatory comments in our home about women or about girls, or how, I think especially in our family, sometimes comparisons can come up around sports. And Melissa and I have been sensitive to that, but I just set my boys down and I'm just like, hey, look, like we are never going to say anything to Ivy and Indy that isn't speaking life and possibility into them. And they have just as much capability as you do. They have every right to flourish and succeed and excel in any area of their life that's important to them as you do. And yeah, like if it doesn't elevate and inspire, which is, our family's mission statement, and that can go for anything, but specifically, and I was able to bring it back to that, like I brought that up, like, hey, if you have something to say about girls or about women that doesn't elevate and inspire, there's no usefulness in saying it, and I won't tolerate it like being said in our home. So it was a good conversation.
Okay, I'm going to take this a direction you might not want it to go, but I think that we've built this family brand podcast by talking about like real things and things that really happen and things that really matter. And so this kind of falls in line with that because, so I went with the boys to Boston, which I'll talk about in a minute. Chris finished his event with the girls in Utah, and then we met up in Florida at I told you it was a work event, and Chris had the opportunity to speak there for a few minutes and kind of shared some of these same things that he had learned at Girl Dad Camp. And afterwards, a woman came up to Chris, and I'm going to let you talk again because I wasn't part of the conversation, but it was interesting, like from everything that Chris shared, which is basically what he just shared, she like came up to him, and I thought she was like, out of the corner of my eye, I thought she was just coming up to him to say like, I love that. Like, that's incredible. But she actually didn't. She had something else to say. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And I appreciated what she said. And I felt like she did it from a very loving, like
Mhm.
kind place. But she said, well, you left one of the options out in what you said about what girls can do and what they can achieve. And I was like, oh, what was that? And she goes, they can also be stay-at-home moms. Like I was a stay-at-home mom. I homeschooled my son. I cherished that time with him. And I was like, and it kind of dawned on me that, yeah, like totally. And so I reflected on that more, and I appreciated her having because I'm sure that took a lot of courage to come up and share that with me. And the more I thought about it though, is like, I'm still glad that I said what I said, because I actually think that for a lot of young girls and a lot of women, that traditionally the belief has been, but that's all you can do. And so like, to me, it's like, I think most young girls and most women I could be wrong on this, but I think that most of them already believe that that's a possibility. I'm more interested though in like what they've started to believe isn't a possibility. Like that you can be president or the president. You can be a CEO. You can be an engineer. You can be a big time decision maker. If that's what aligns with you, basically you can be anything that you want to be. And this idea also of kind of like a woman's place is, fill in the blank. My thinking on that is like a woman's place is wherever she decides it is. Just like a man's place is wherever he decides it is. And I do really value though the role of like when women decide that when they decide like, hey, the thing that does call to me and align for me is to be a stay-at-home mom. It's like it's incredible. Like I can't think of a more sacred calling or a more sacred work than being a mother. And so, yeah, I think a woman's place is wherever she decides that is and whatever really aligns for her. And I just want my girls to, hey, if you want to be the president of a Fortune 500 company someday, do it. It's amazing. I'll support you in it. I think you'd be incredible at it. If you want to, be a hippie and, sell sandwiches part-time so that you can surf and live out of a van and travel the world, and I'll probably come travel the world with you and go to some epic places. And like, that's amazing. And
Sandwiches.
yeah. And if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, amazing. If you want to be a mom and the president of a Fortune, like that's also possible. And I know Melissa like talks a lot about that, this idea of like motherhood can be an and. And I think for whatever reason, I think our society for the longest time culturally has been obsessed with like wanting to define what women and girls have to be and these boxes they have to fit in. And I don't see that happening as much with men. And I just think it's weird and I think it's outdated. And I think, yeah, women can be and my girls can be whoever they want to be. And I'm all in on that.
Our girls are lucky.
Love you, Melissa.
I hate this topic. Even the first time Chris shared it, when he shared it at the event, I had not heard him talk about it because we had just met up and I hadn't really connected with him at all. And when he shared it at the event in front of the people, I got emotional too. And I was like, wow, I really want that for my girls, for all the girls, like to be who they want to be, whoever that is. So my trip with the book is anticlimactic after
No, it
that.
was I was jealous of your trip with the boys. It sounds amazing.
You were jealous. I could know. And it was really fun.
Not because I had a blast with my girls, but it was awesome.
But we did plan an epic trip. So I sat the boys down. So we knew the girls were going to a thing and we didn't want to be left out, me and the boys. And so we sat down and said, okay, where would you guys want to go? We knew we needed to be in Florida, the next week. And so I said, we can even go somewhere on the East Coast because we have to go to the East Coast anyway. And so where we landed was, let's go to Boston. Tanner was excited about seeing a game at Fenway Park, which is the oldest baseball stadium in MLB. And Tate was more excited about like the food and the history. So it just felt like a really good fit for everyone. And then Trip, who's 9, he was just on board for whatever. He's so fun. And so that's what we did. We went and saw a game in Fenway Park and it was so epic. I like baseball. I wouldn't say that I'm, a raving baseball fan, but even for me sitting in that old park, there's so many quirks and so much history. It was the Yankees, New York Yankees versus the Red Sox. And so it's this iconic.
Yeah, the greatest rivalry in the history of baseball.
Yeah, and there were people getting thrown out everywhere, like all around us, because the Yankees were, we decided we were going to be Red Sox fans for that game since we were in Boston. But there was, the score went back and forth, like who was winning, and Yankee fans were getting thrown out, and it was just like so epic. And it was.
And
so
then the Red Sox come back at the end and win.
Yeah, the Red Sox ended up winning, so it was just an incredible game. And then we, saw the Boston Tea Party Museum, which is really fun. It's an interactive museum. If you're ever in Boston, I would recommend it because you actually get to pretend to throw tea off of the tea party, and when you come in, they assign you like an identity. And you kind of reenact as if you were at this meeting trying to decide if you should go throw tea off the ship. So that's the thing is when we traveled to Europe earlier this year, my kids felt like I planned too many museums. And so that was like the boys thing. Like, if we go to Boston, no museums and no churches. And so I showed them the Tea Party Museum and how it was like interactive. And they said, okay, we will go to this one. And so we did. But it was a good one. And then I guess one other thing I'll add here, we did the normal things that you could Google, like things to do in Boston. We saw the North End, where there's a lot of Italian food, and we like explored the city. But I guess the last thing I'll mention here in regards to the trip, for me and the boys, is I was a little bit nervous about the trip, actually, because sometimes I feel like I'm the person that's trying to make sure that everyone, maybe like the enforcer in a way of like
The responsible
the
one.
responsible one. And I had this fear that we would be on this trip and that somehow I would make it not fun. Like, and the boys would be like, oh, mom, whatever. And it wasn't an actual fear, but it was there in the back of my mind. And in our check-ins, in our weekly check-ins that we do with the kids and with each other, Chris and I, we usually issue each other a challenge. And Chris issued me a challenge heading into that week for that trip. And it was like such a good challenge for me. And the challenge he issued me, basically, maybe you can remember more what you said, but what I internalized that he challenged me with was to just have fun with them, to not stress about, maybe they're jaywalking, or maybe they're like, it's boys. They're like always talking about like farts and being mildly inappropriate. Instead of like being on them all the time about all of that, just have fun with them and like let some of that stuff go. And it was really good advice for me, because there were several times where I reminded myself, like, okay, it's fine. Like, we're just here. We're having fun. This, in the big scheme of things, like, this is not a big deal.
Just laugh at this inappropriate joke.
Just laugh and have fun. And like, no one was being harmed. Like, it was fine. It was just good fun. And I really appreciated that advice for Chris. It was really great advice for me. And we did, like, looking back, like, I was going through my camera roll, had a blast. It was so good. And I for sure would love to take a trip with my boys again.
Yeah, and I asked. I think that was fun when we did reconvene in Florida for this epic event that we went to. You've heard us talk. I think if you've been a podcast listener for a while, you've heard us talk about Triad, this amazing company that both the Possibility Co. and now Family Brand have a strategic partnership with, and they're just the coolest community. They serve financial advisors, and they do a business trip every January, and then they do a family trip every summer where all of the families like come. And so what they're really known for is helping financial advisors create unlimited growth and freedom in life and in business. And they've created this really cool movement called DBDL, Do Business, Do Life. So their Do Business event is in January. Their Do Life event is usually in July or August. And so it was really fun reconvening and me being able to ask the boys, like, okay, was Boston really fun? And the boys were like, oh, it was epic. It was so much fun. And then Melissa got to talk to the girls about Girl Dad. And then we got to, create some more fun, obviously, together in Florida. And I think, Melissa and I've talked, like, we've each had some pretty profound takeaways of just our interaction with our kids. And especially, I had a lot of profound takeaways around my girls and what it means to be in their shoes or try to, support them. And Melissa had some, cool insights, obviously, with the time with our boys. But I think overall, it just reaffirms, like, one of our family values is, Smiths friends and adventure together, and just how important and meaningful it is to take adventures as a family. And they don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be, extravagant. Like, many of them, some of our most favorite adventures that our kids talk about are the simplest ones that we just get in a car and road trip. And I also think there is something to be said too for this idea of mixing it up. And we've noticed that, like, and I'm sure you've noticed it in your own family. Sometimes just even one family member being removed from the equation can change the dynamics. And it doesn't mean it's like better or worse, or just sometimes it's just different. But I do think it is fun. And that's what we've realized is, when I've taken just a boys trip, or Melissa's taken just a girls trip, or we've taken just the two of us and one of our kids, or Melissa and I have taken the two of us and just trip in Indy. And we went to Disneyland with the little kids. We've taken just the two of us, and Tate and Tanner. We've taken the two of us with Ivy trip in Indy or Ivy trip in Tanner. It's like, and then this most recent one is like me with the girls and Melissa with the boys. I think there's something to that of just, I don't know. Well, I don't know what I would call that. Just mixing it up as well. Like not every adventure and not every family vacation, I think, has to be just you and the whole family. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's amazing. But I think more than anything, I would just reemphasize, man, yeah, go on adventures with your family. Make time to like create new experiences and create new memories together. Like they will remember that more than any gift, more than likely that they were bought, or any like lavish, sometimes it's the simplest things.
And support your daughters. I think that's the other takeaway from this episode. I think that I'd want to circle back to where we started is, yeah, how can we as parents and, encourage our children to support? Of course, we want to support both of our sons and our daughters, but I guess it's just prevalent for me talking about our daughters too. So have a wonderful week. See you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Family Brand Podcast. To say thank you, we have something really awesome we'd love to share with you.
We often hear from families who will tell us that they just feel so overwhelmed because of the demands that are placed on them. They feel like they're constantly being pulled in so many different directions and spread thin, and they're spending time as a family, but they don't feel like it's quality time. They're not really connected, and they want to be more intentional. And we can certainly relate because we felt like that at one point in our family. And so we created a guide that allowed us to really be more confident around how we spend time as a family and what we say yes to and what we say no to. And it's just brought so much more peace into our home. It's made our lives so much more simple, and we want to share it with you. So if you go to familybrand.com/free, you can download the How to Take Back Your Family's Time guide. And I can promise you it'll give you more confidence and more peace in your life and in your family.
One last thing, we feel so inspired when we hear from families that we are making a difference for them. We would love it if you would leave us a 5-star rating and a review on the podcast so we can reach even more amazing families. We truly believe that the way we change the world is one family at a time.